Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition on Native American Indian history and enlightenment. My name is Doado Okun Khaliadonada Khunagiski. In English, that is Chief Eagle Spirit Dancing of the Cherokee Blackfoot Cultural Circle. And what I wanted to open up on the subject matter today is the adoption and the Native American Indian community, and how it has profoundly affected our people in such a destructive way, that the residual effects of it and its current practice, mind you, it's still um, tearing apart the fabric of what's left of our indigenous communities, because it is literally in tatters, to a point, where we're losing languages, you know, um, at a rate. It's almost like the speed of sound, and it's disturbing. It's disturbing. The reason why I wanted to touch on the adoption process, with regards to the Native Americans, uh, is because personally myself I have experienced adoption, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. However, uh, it has made me who I am today. An acknowledged Native by blood, um, and because of my after learning at an early age of 11, finding out that I was adopted, the need to know. And I want to expound on that because when you're an infant, you're oblivious to the world. When you're a baby, you basically are just left to what your periphery, your vision can see or view in front of you. That's basically how you perceive the world, what you see, and you reflect what you see. So you learn what you see. It isn't until the child grows to see something that is not quite right, say within the family structure, there are obvious differences. And I say this because my own personal experience. I grew up. I was adopted at the age of 5, put in foster care from the time I could practically breathe on my own. They took me from my mother, and adopted in 1972. And once I was raised with Black American family, and all my siblings were much 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 darker than me. All their hair textures were different from mine, and there was no racism there. I want to point this out, because they say children don't see color. That's a lie. What we don't do is we don't judge upon it. As children, we're not prejudiced towards color. We notice it, and then if it's something that is not um, reflective of what we are, especially within a family setting, it depends on the setting as well. In my particular case, again, my brothers, my even my parents, complexions totally different, totally different, and it was self evident for me at 11 years old, and I was always very articulate, and always two grades ahead of my reading, comprehension um, learning, in that regards when it came to the English language. So I asked questions naturally. One of my foster brothers, and I told him, you know, why is it that we're so different? Um, and he told me that I was adopted. Immediately, I went into this closet mode, of withdrawal. Oh my God, who are these people? Where am I? Who am I? And the 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 art of looking in the mirror, I was transfixed for a time. That literally became an art for me because I'm studying every feature of my face and trying to look and compare to others. That's why, yeah, and this is where I'm going with this. Is the a part of the destruction that took place mentally, psychologically, with regards to language and identity of our peoples that is still going on today. And this is something that needs to be seriously discussed because I'm hearing in indigenous communities that um, their families being torn apart. It's almost like I compare this to slavery. When the master wanted to, you know, um, break the families up, he would sell the children, you know, um, to different plantations in other states or even other countries, separate the mother and even the father, and never to be seen again. Um, this was destructive because if mommy and daddy knew a particular language that they identified with from their cultural past, they couldn't teach their children. So they were supplanted with someone else's language, someone else's idea of what reality was. Um, and I don't, I tell people, well, regardless of how you look at it, this is how I look at it. And I'm talking out of my own shoes because I experienced it myself. I still have family in South Carolina who, they look at me like I was a lost sheep. There are Indians still down in South Carolina that live in a certain area. I'm not going to relinquish that information, but they live in a certain area, and they found out about me, and they're like, "Come home." They're telling me to come down there. So, uh, not digressing too much, just about myself. The larger issue here, is that adoptions within the Native American Indian community, what it means for us, and how can we survive um, these um, these things. Now, the 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 reasons why most Indians today are being uh, disintegrated, if you will, on the reservations, the claims because of domestic violence, alcoholism, drug abuse, parents not being able to take care of children. Now, this is the issue because I've seen a couple of documentaries on this. And if anyone who's watching this broadcast that I'm doing now, you can go online and find out, on YouTube as well, Indians in crisis, families, being destroyed, broken up. And again, this is 2012 now. This is current. This is not something I'm speaking of that happened 50 years ago or just 100 years ago, even though these practices have been going on for quite some time, over 150 years now, actually, since the time of the boarding schools. You know, so we're dealing with a very long, drawn out, destructive part of our history that is currently taking place, and it needs to be addressed. So the children that are being taken from their mothers as a result of so-called drug abuse, um, and alcohol abuse and domestic violence. Don't get me wrong; these things need to be attended to. I agree that if there is a problem in the family, but what I don't agree with is outsiders. Meaning that, and for the most part, this is what I've seen, that there are white people, here we go again, that are coming to the rescue to save these children, from them being harmed by their family members. You mean to tell me that they cannot find other family members on a reservation or even in another indigenous community somewhere, that they can't find a family willing to take care of this child, that'll give this child. See, what I believe that this is the destructive process that has been going on in this country far too long, and this is something that benefits the larger picture here of those who look at it as something that needs to be done. They kill the Indian and save the man. Yeah, I said it. That's right. I said it, and that's how I perceive this, because you're going to tell me that this is the only outlet that these people have who are destitute on the reservations, who are suffering immeasurably as a result of policies that they did not create themselves, and that the only way that this can be resolved is that when they have children, to take their children or steal their children away from them, because from what I've gathered, that some of these practices that are taking place with regards to adoption is illegal, to say the least. That the children are being removed from their homes, or the lack thereof, or whatever the case may be, and they're being put into, quote, non-Indian households. White people, I'm sorry, this is the information that I'm getting a hold of, and I am just regurgitating what I have seen and what I have heard from other sites that I have visited, and documentaries that are coming up now, that people are starting to pay attention to. They're saying something is amiss here. Why is it that when it comes to indigenous peoples, now we have to be saved by a white family, a white woman, or a white man that has to come in to save our children? What is wrong with our people? I have an issue that says all of our people are not destitute. I know there is a serious problem in the Midwest, in the Lakotas, and other reservations that but there is not enough information being shared. There's not enough networking going on between adoption agencies around the country with regards to indigenous peoples. Now, I know that there are certain policies and restrictions, but those restrictions don't seem tight enough with regards to the adoption process for indigenous peoples ending up in white families. Now, you don't see, and this is another thing, you don't see black Americans adopting natives off the reservations. I don't think they're going to allow it. And this is, I find ironic, because I'm hearing indigenous peoples now starting to complain now because, hello, that flag has gone up. The red flag has gone up. Wait a minute, something's up here. What more white people are adopting indigenous peoples? Why? Why? What's going on? Well, what is it that there's a need for them all of a sudden? They want to save us again? Please. If that was the case, then we wouldn't be in this position that we are in today. Most Indians are suffering at an alarming rate. There is a 70 to 80% suicide rate amongst the teens, 80 to 90% unemployment rate. Now all of a sudden, indigenous peoples, need to be saved again by white people. We did not put ourselves in this predicament. The U.S. government did. They put us into this predicament, and we are still trying to dig ourselves out of. And I mean, it's difficult. People talk about pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps, but if you ain't got no bootstraps to pull, how are you gonna pull yourself up? You mean the resources that you have is not really next to nothing. And you're just left there with a pot in your hand, no water, no stove to put it on. You just have a pot. So this falls on absurdity, to say the least, and it's upsetting. It really bothers me. Um, Again, this is the adoption process and the Native American Indians, part one, what it means for our people in the 21st century, and even before, and beyond. So this is part one of the adoption experience in Native American Indians. So with that being said, um, I'm going to sign off, and I'll pick up where I left off.